In today's episode of The Advisory Deck, we're going to talk all about selling in 2020. The fundamentals, the nuances that might be a little more specific to this strange and unsettled time in history, who needs to be thinking about and involved in sales, and how you can go about it in an effective, sustainable way. Perfect one for sales professionals and teams all over, but also for senior leaders in any business. Hope you enjoy. Hey, it's Troy, Forrest and James McGill here again, sitting here on the advisory deck. Bus is going behind us. Afternoon, James.
Hey, Troy.
So for those of you who've been following along at home, you'll know these are conversations that we're putting together to try and add some value to business leaders, business owners, teams of people who are navigating the challenging world of 2020 and trying to grow stronger, more successful and lucrative businesses on the other side. We don't sit here and profess to have all the answers, but I guess our combined 50-ish years of experience in business across strategy, sales, growth, leadership, all sort of facets of business have made us, given us enough experience to be dangerous, and where we start to get out of our depth, we throw over to a subject matter expert who can give some really up-to-date commentary on these particular topics. We call it the advisory deck because we have a little deck here of different concepts and challenges, and we sort of pick one at random. But I'll tell you what, I'm not going to pick one at random today, because in the last conversation that we recorded, James flagged one he really didn't want to talk about, and I thought, no, this is a really cool one to talk about. So we're going to talk about selling in 2020. What it means, what it looks like, who has to do it, and just kind of talking off camera with James before, this concept that selling is something of a dark art reserved for real estate people and car sales people and those kind of things. I want to try and debunk that a little bit too. So selling in 2020.
Solution management, value adding, relationship building, it's all versions of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the reason in the last, I think, it would have gone out on your Reddit, Troy. The reason I avoided it last time was just purely because of the time we're sitting in, July 2020, where what we would have hoped 6 weeks ago was the tail end of COVID.
Yep.
If you're sitting in Victoria now, you're back in the swing of things. It's tough times, right? And if you were selling in a certain way back in January or February, you've had to completely pivot your business and change your messaging, change your approach, and it's every day now is something different happening.
Yes.
So it's one that I looked at and thought we could spend hours talking about selling in 2020. So there was another topic that I'll jump onto instead. You've brought us back there, so let's see where we go.
It is interesting, and you're right. There is a level of perceptiveness that needs to be borne in mind by people as they go out and sell. And if I'm out there today trying to do the sort of traditional hard sell, I've got to close business because, hey, revenue streams have dried up and it's tougher out there as well, and it's going to get more competitive soon. So hard, and I'm getting 47 new emails in my inbox every day trying to sell me something as well. That's not selling effectively in 2020, nor for the next period of time, and nor, I would argue, forever thereafter. Because I think it is something that, we associate with techniques or processes or programs. It's a fundamental thing to keep the lights on, and it's something that doesn't matter whether you're a consultant, whether you are the CEO, whether you're on an advisory board, or whether you are the BDM. Our role, our responsibility in any commercial enterprise, any enterprise with an ambition of sorts that has a message or something that they want people to engage with, has to sell. So I guess first step one, get over that bloody preconception of whatever you thought selling actually is, and get to grips with the fact that it is trying to facilitate an exchange of value. How you go about doing it, what the right appropriate approach in your culture looks like, it will be a little bit varied, but don't think it's something that you have to do to someone. I think that'd be my first kind of key point there.
But people don't want to be sold to.
No.
I think if we go back to the fundamentals of marketing, marketing 101 concept, the idea used to be you create a problem that people didn't know they had, and then you say, here's a solution. And some companies do that really well. Most people don't want that. They've got a problem. They know they've got a problem these days, but they want someone to partner with them.
Yep.
They want someone who's going to, we're not talking here about selling a Mars bar or something else. This is, selling a product or service that's got some ongoing value and some relationship.
Yep.
So it's not a single fast-moving consumer good kind of product. That's an entirely different topic. But I think people here want value. They want the relationship. They want to understand that in tough times, that if you're selling something to them, that you're going to be there to support them through that. And what we see work really, really well in terms of sales, and especially in professional services, is that you don't sell, the companies that are doing really well aren't selling by the 6-minute blocks. So I think there's an opportunity there for professional services, consultants, whatever it might be, that if you're looking to sell to someone purely by saying, here's my technical advice, whether I'm selling into agribusiness or whatever it might be, and you're selling on the clock, and you're saying, I'm happy to help you through whatever you're doing, but I'll only do that if I can charge you for it. That's a massive barrier to entry, and it will stop people picking up the phone. So I think that whole philosophy, we're talking about the CEO down, that philosophy from the CEO, board, whoever it might be, that this is how we sell. We sell by partnering with people. That's our number one. We sell for the long term, so we're not worrying about booking 6 minutes on every single sales call. We're worrying about, how do I retain this client? How do I impress this client? How do I make sure they'll stay with us for the long term? And that's that can be tough as well, because sometimes you get an environment where it's all about the dollars. And you've got to figure out what your actual core proposition is.
Yes.
But I think from what we do, and I know your philosophy is the same, it's the relationship. It's taking maybe some short-term pain. You've got to control that pain, but you take that short-term pain for the long-term gain. And sales isn't about, how do I sell you this for that, and there's the exchange of dollars. It's, how do I get you from where you are as a client to where you want to be.
You are bang on.
That's what sales in 2020 and 2019, and I'm assuming 2025, will fundamentally be about.
Help me navigate the challenge, or get to the brighter place that is really important to me, in a way that constitutes a fair exchange of value. Show that you really give a damn about me. The thing that people get fearful of around salespeople, so you go and buy a car, and it's a process most people sort of just bite the bullet and go through, and they don't enjoy the process because they know that, I've just got to go and check with the manager on that price. I'm sure we can do a deal for you, kind of thing. We know that there's something being done to us there, a manipulation, a sort of, they're doing what they need to do to move that car out the door. So not all car salespeople are bad, by the way. But where the thinking in this kind of area and in 2020 is different is that we as consumers in every marketplace have so much choice available to us. Choice one, don't do anything, don't spend $1. And a lot of that's going to happen in the times moving forward, because we're going to have some austere times in certain places. Or there's so many other versions and options, and not even traditional competition, but just alternate approaches to things as well. And I think that, when you as a supplier of products or services get that in your head, that I really need to show that I care more for these people by thinking about and asking some really thoughtful questions, by spending more time thinking about their scenarios and navigating ways out of those difficulties or achieving goals that they want to have, than I think about my product brochures or my catalogue of services, and you start asking those questions, and you give yourself over to that. I want to be part of your world and part of that sort of, that's something that's not the domain purely of a business development manager. It doesn't matter who you are, if you can show that you are really interested, which is why it's really hard to fake. So I think, again, we're going to see this, we've talked about it for a long time, this idea of authenticity. In sales professionals, in business developers, in consultants, in business owners, you will sell more effectively when your customers get at every interface that you truly, deeply give a damn about them and their worlds. You're a walk-up star.
You are, and I think if you look at this from a slightly different angle, a couple of things that people might go away and consider after this. One, the sales process. So from that first conversation with a potential client through to the end of that sales cycle, what does that look like? And there's some really simple steps in there. One of them is you can impress clients by being nothing more than responsive. And the number of times, I'm sure this has happened to everyone, You ring, email a trade electrician, carpenter, whatever it is, and you've got a small job around the house you need doing, and you don't hear back from them. Or it takes 3 or 4 days. If I'm inquiring about something, I've got time at the moment, I'm thinking about it now, I'm looking for a solution now, the person who comes back to me quickly is probably the one that's going to get a pretty good chance of getting the job. Right? So that's nothing more than saying to a client or a customer, I value your time as well, I'll get back to you quickly. Sometimes that's just enough to start to build that relationship. So it doesn't have to be expensive sales processes with lots of systems and big marketing dollars. It can be really, really simple. Right? The other one, which I don't think we do enough as a business, is to look at the sales process from the customer's perspective. Right? You know, what is their experience through the sales cycle, and that can either be done formally, as you go and put in steps to do audits on the sales process and engage with the customer afterwards, and you set out something like a net promoter score, and the surveys, which more and more big companies especially are doing. You know, how did you find the experience? Would you rate us 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 stars? I was on the phone to a large telco recently and got sent a response after being on the phone for 45 minutes, and the very first question didn't actually even make any sense. Right. It was like, rate us from 1 to 3, but it didn't explain what the 1 and 3 were. The wording was just horrible. Right. So even their attempt to qualify their customer service wasn't great. But it might be as simple as the CEO picks 3 customers at random once a month and rings and says, have you got a couple of minutes? I'd love to know what your experience was like. We value you as a customer. Yep. And I think that being disjointed, disconnected from your customers that are the reason why you exist as a company, yep, to ask them the question about their sales experience, which should take more than half an hour if you're a CEO once a month, is probably more powerful than sitting in boardrooms with your executive or your sales teams for hours and hours. Yep. Because customers will generally tell you what they think if you ask the right questions. Yep. And that sales in 2020, sometimes it's really simple things that cost almost nothing that might give you the best insights, and they get lost in the idea of having to have fantastic CRMs and great processes and spend thousands on training. Sometimes just keep it simple.
I think many organisations are, penny wise and pound foolish when it comes to the idea. We worry so much about those really big things and those tiny little customer interfaces. How we have the conversation on the phone, what their first impressions of our people, our website, our store are. I talk about having a fresh eyes look at every kind of vantage point that a customer could have of your business, your people, how you're being perceived out there. And really a salesperson or a sales professional or business developer's job is to capitalise on all of those kind of impressions that customer has made and try and understand in sync with the customer whether or not this is actually a good fit, right? So one of the things that I've observed and I've been around the selling environment now for too many years, is that quite often introverts do quite well in sales, and so we think of selling as gift of the gab, talk underwater with golf balls in mouth sort of stuff. And there's no doubt that you've got to like and enjoy being with people, but an introvert will quite often ask the questions to get the other person into the conversation. And from just experience of coaching hundreds of sales reps, it's those that show that real interest that are fertilizing and nurturing the conversation. The ag metaphor works really well here, right? So there's a time to nurture the soil and the client relationship. There's a time to plant some seeds, some ideas, some questions, some thoughts, and there's a time to ask the question, well, okay, look, everything looks like it's lining up. Do you want to move forward? And that's effectively selling. So we just saved you a 2-day sales training course right there. In 2020, with all of the complexities and the noise and the challenges that are going on, with some austerity that will kick into a number of markets as well, it's those that show they are truly human, those who will keep in touch. One of the hardest things for salespeople to do is stay in touch when there's nothing new to tell people. And sales professionals the world over worry about this, but I've got nothing to say if I pick up the phone. Just be there. Just ask some questions. How's everything going? Can I be of assistance? So if you get really, really good at asking questions, I promise you that's going to drive sales growth for you as well.
Spot on.
We might throw to someone who might have some deeper thoughts on this topic as well. Let's throw to them now.
G'day Troy and James, thanks very much for the opportunity to participate in this conversation. I think it's a really interesting topic and one that I feel that many businesses perhaps don't give enough time to. So well done on bringing it up as a conversation starter. As a specialist business development consultant, I help businesses in various industries to develop or review and change and implement new business development strategies. And part of that, obviously, and a key component is the sales process. I'm going to assume here that, we know we're speaking to the decision maker, that we have listened to their challenges and their needs, and that we know our products inside and out and upside down, and we've been able to marry those two together to create a potential transaction. Because it's at this point that I feel most businesses can have a higher rate of failure than what they should have. And I want to give you a little tip on around the language to use at this point. The first question at this point I like to ask is, so do you have any questions about that? Essentially what I'm asking is, so do you have any objections about that? And ideally, I actually want one or two questions. The reason I want those questions is that it's going to provide me a feedback loop where it's a question where perhaps I haven't covered something in my value proposition, or let's call it our sales pitch, that I can include in future iterations. The second one is perhaps it's a question that I hadn't been asked before, and it's something that I should prepare a better answer to rather than what I might come up with on the spot. So it's an opportunity to learn and improve our processes. Once we've got all through those questions, aka objections, the next question I like to ask is, so when would you like to get started? It's a question that's essentially assuming the sale has already been made, we just need to take it to the next step. It's a bit like, from a product's perspective, the car salesman might say to you, so what colour would you like me to order the car for you? He or she is assuming that this is the car you're going to buy, and that he's the guy that's going to sell it to you. Rather than asking a closed-ended question of, so would you like to move forward? You're actually opening a open-ended and presupposed answer where you're going to get an answer wherever it is that's successful for you. When would you like to get started? Well, let's get started on Monday. Let's get started next week. Well, actually, from a budgetary perspective, we need to start this in the new financial year. It's at least giving you the next starting point to keep moving the sales process forward. I hope there are a couple of questions and tips that will help you improve your success in the sales process, and I look forward to the guys closing out the video.
Terrific insights. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. So, James, you've led sales teams, you've managed sales teams, you are a consultant in your own right who has to sell your services as well. You're sitting here in 2020. Counsel that you might give to a business leader or someone who goes, oh yeah, this topic of selling, I know, we've got to think about it. And what would you say to them?
Don't forget the low-hanging fruit. Often it's there, and it's the simple things that make the difference. Like you said, it's that relationship. How do you find ways to get rid of the barriers? Ask the questions. And I think, again, it depends on the product and the margins you're working with, and there's a whole range of things that, advice will change from industry to industry, but it doesn't have to be complex. No. I think often a good relationship is, as you say, a phone call, an email often is more valuable than a massive marketing budget.
Yeah.
The other thing I've learned over time too is that good salespeople will often find ways to say it's not them that's causing the lack of sales, it's marketing or it's operations or something else.
Yes.
So I think sales.
We need a better brochure.
Exactly. Sales is part of a whole team.
Yeah.
Right. And to sell effectively, you do need good marketing and operations and a whole range of other things, good products. But a good salesperson can move product that isn't as good as someone else's because they understand their client. And I think that's that sales piece, is you're making a client's problem go away, and a good salesperson will figure out how to do that. Yeah. And that doesn't take months and months and months of training. It doesn't take all the fanciest things in the world. It just takes people who've got the right intent, values are aligned with their clients, and support from the team behind them, including the CEO, to make sure that they've got the right expectations so that they can move forward with confidence, so they're not trying to create the wrong experience for their clients.
It's so true. Effective selling means coming over to the customer's side of the table and really trying to understand, their ambitions, their challenges, their worldview, and showing that you want to be beside them, not on the other side of the counter. And it's why it's so important that everyone in the organisation, no matter whether you're in a council or warehouse or wherever, needs to understand this. And you need to have that continual conversation. Where are our customers at? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they worried about? A little like the advisory board. Yeah. Show me that you are someone who's coming to me and asking me the questions, but also coming to me proactively and saying, I've been thinking about your situation and I've got an idea. Those kind of words, they're so unbelievably rare, but someone, I want that person in my world. And if I have to pay a slight price premium for the products that they're offering or, overlook some other competitors, chances are many of them will, because you're showing that you give a damn. It sounds unbelievably simple, but it's so rarely done effectively. So we hope that's been interesting and value. If you want to come and have a deeper conversation, 15 minutes, we can kind of only go to that level, about selling, about how your business and your team are going to be effectively selling in this period ahead. Please, we'd love you to come and sit on the deck with us and have a bit of a chat and a coffee. James, pleasure as always. Thank you.
Always good, Troy. Thank you.
Okay, if you want to reach out to us, contact details down the bottom. Thanks for joining us on the advisory deck.